I should probably start by telling you who I am. My name is Clara Evans, I'm 31 years old, and until recently, I thought I had everything figured out. To the world, my life looked perfect. I had a stable career as a marketing director, a cozy apartment in the city, and most importantly, a relationship that everyone envied. At least, that's what I believed. My partner, Daniel, was charming, successful, and the kind of man people described as too good to be true. He knew how to light up a room, how to make people laugh, and how to convince you that you were the only one who mattered when his eyes locked onto yours. For years, I thought I had found my soulmate. But behind the polished exterior of candlelit dinners and carefully planned vacations, there were cracks. Small ones at first, unanswered messages, sudden late nights at work, and a phone he kept closer to him than his own wallet. I brushed them off. Love makes you blind, doesn't it? Or maybe love makes you desperate to keep believing. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday evening. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch, phone still in his hand. I didn't mean to pry, I really didn't. But the screen lit up with a notification, a message preview from someone saved as Marcus. Except the words weren't friendly. They weren't businesslike. They read, "Last night was unforgettable. Can't wait for more. Same place tomorrow?" My heart stopped. I opened the conversation, and what I found shattered me. There were dozens of messages, spanning weeks, flirty, intimate, explicit. Pictures, too. Not with Marcus, of course, with a woman. A woman I knew. Her name was Leela. She wasn't just anyone. She was Daniel's coworker. And worse, she had been at my house, had laughed at my jokes, had toasted wine with me at dinner parties. I felt sick. My stomach twisted, and suddenly everything in my life felt like a cruel joke. I sat there in silence, watching the man I thought I loved snore peacefully while his lies unfolded on the glowing screen. The betrayal wasn't just a knife, it was a slow, merciless cut. For days, I couldn't breathe without feeling the weight of it. I wanted to scream, to confront him right there, to throw him out and erase his existence. But something inside me stopped. No, I thought, that's too easy. He took my trust, my love, and made me a fool. If I ended it quietly, he would never understand the depth of the pain he caused. And so, I began to plan. If Daniel wanted to live a double life, I would tear it apart in the most unforgettable way possible. I would expose him, not in private, but in front of everyone who believed his lies. And the perfect opportunity? His upcoming birthday party. The guest list was packed. Family, friends, colleagues, even his boss. The stage was already set. All I had to do was play my role until the curtains rose. The days leading up to Daniel's birthday party felt like I was living a double life. On the surface, I was the perfect partner, smiling, laughing, nodding along when he talked about how excited he was for his big night. But inside, my heart had calcified into something cold, sharp, and deliberate. I had already made my decision. If Daniel thought he could make a fool out of me, I would flip the script. His betrayal wouldn't stay hidden in dark hotel rooms and whispered text. It would burn under the brightest spotlight. And the stage? His grand birthday party. The first step was information. I needed more than just a few texts and photos. If I was going to expose him, it had to be undeniable, inescapable. I went back through his phone carefully, every chance I got. The messages were all there, but I needed proof. Dates, times, locations. Screenshots weren't enough. I started saving everything to a hidden drive on my laptop. Hotel bookings in his email, receipts in his banking app, even Uber rides to places he had never told me about. Each discovery was like poison, but I swallowed it down because I had a plan. Then I turned my attention to Leela. She had always been friendly, too friendly. I remembered her smirk, the way her hand lingered a second too long on Daniel's arm, the way she called me sweetheart, as if mocking me to my face. And now I knew she was just as guilty as him. So I dug deeper. Social media check-ins, selfies that matched the timestamps of Daniel's messages, even a picture of the two of them together at a rooftop bar where he once told me he was working late. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. The second step was the delivery. I needed to figure out how to drop the truth bomb at the party in a way no one could ignore. The idea came to me one night while staring at Daniel's invitation list. He had planned everything to perfection. An upscale rooftop bar, catered food, speeches, even a projector for a slideshow of memories. And that was it, the projector. What if the slideshow wasn't just filled with smiling pictures of Daniel and his perfect life? What if it showed the real Daniel, the liar, the cheat, the man who betrayed me and everyone else who believed in his facade? The thought electrified me. I got to work. I compiled every screenshot, every picture, every damning piece of evidence into a presentation. But instead of just dumping the files, I wove them into a narrative. The first slides looked normal enough. Pictures of Daniel at dinners, vacations, office events, smiling, handsome, charming, just as everyone knew him. But then the tone would shift. Messages, receipts, selfies of him and Leela, her name written in bold next to his. Dates and times laid out like evidence in a courtroom. By the final slide, there would be no room for denial. The mask would be ripped off, and everyone would see the man I had seen that night on the couch. The third step was my performance. I had to act like nothing was wrong, right up until the moment everything came crashing down. That meant kissing him goodnight, pretending to laugh at his jokes, even helping him pick out an outfit for the party. It was torture. Every time he touched me, I wanted to recoil. Every time he smiled at me, I wanted to scream. But I couldn't let him know. Not yet. Because the sweetest revenge comes not from anger, but from patience. The night before the party, I stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection didn't look like Clara Evans anymore. She looked like a stranger. Calm, controlled, almost dangerous. Tomorrow, I whispered to myself. Tomorrow, he falls. I barely slept. My mind replayed every detail. How the room would go silent, how faces would shift from smiles to horror, how Daniel would crumble under the weight of exposure. And Leela, sweet, smirking Leela, would be right there, dragged into the fire with him. I wanted to feel guilty, but I didn't, not even for a second, because Daniel had stolen years from me. Now I was about to take back something far greater: his pride, his reputation, his perfect little image. When the sun rose the next morning, I was ready. The trap was set, the stage was waiting, and by the end of the night, everyone would know the truth. The night of the party, the rooftop bar glittered like something out of a movie. String lights draped across polished glass railings, a live band played smooth jazz, and waiters in crisp uniforms floated through the crowd with champagne flutes. Daniel was in his element. He wore a tailored navy suit that hugged his frame perfectly, his smile gleaming under the golden lights. He moved through the crowd like a king greeting his loyal subjects, shaking hands, hugging friends, laughing at inside jokes. And of course, Leela was there, dressed in a backless red gown, her hair spilling in waves over her shoulders. She looked like she belonged in the spotlight. Her eyes flicked to Daniel more often than necessary, and the subtle smirk she wore made my stomach twist. But tonight wasn't about anger. Tonight was about control. I took a deep breath, fixing my own mask in place. My black satin dress hugged me in all the right places, my makeup sharp and deliberate, a contrast to the softer look Daniel was used to seeing on me. Tonight, I wasn't his partner. The evening started out harmless enough. Speeches, laughter, clinking glasses. Daniel's coworkers toasted to his unmatched dedication and bright future. Friends joked about his charm, his ambition, his perfect relationship. Each compliment was a dagger, twisting deeper, but I smiled. I smiled so wide my cheeks ached, because soon their words would taste like ash. Halfway through the night, Daniel took my hand, guiding me to the center of the room. "Clara," he whispered, eyes glowing, "thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." His lips brushed my cheek, and for a brief second, I almost broke. Almost. But then I saw Lila in the corner, sipping her champagne, her gaze locked on him like a predator. And just like that, my resolve hardened again. The moment came when the host announced the slideshow. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, clinking his glass, "a walk down memory lane for our man of the hour." The lights dimmed. The chatter softened. All eyes turned to the glowing projector screen. At first, it was exactly what Daniel expected. Childhood photos, graduation day, smiling pictures of him at company events. Everyone clapped and laughed as the slides rolled by. Daniel grinned, his arms slung proudly around my waist. But then, the screen flickered. Slide after slide shifted. Screenshots of text messages appeared. His words to Lila late at night, promising things he had never once said to me. Confused murmurs rippled through the room. Daniel stiffened beside me. Another slide. Receipts for hotel rooms. Another. Selfies of Lila and Daniel, laughing together at the rooftop bar he had once told me was a business dinner. Gasps filled the room. Glasses clinked as people froze mid-sip. The once bubbly atmosphere curdled into silence. "Wait, is this real?" someone whispered. "Oh my God," another voice cut in. Daniel's face drained of color. He stepped forward, his hand raising as if to block the screen. This isn't what it looks like." But the next slide made denial impossible. A video clip, grainy, captured from Lila's own Instagram story. Daniel's voice clear as day, calling her my love as he kissed her cheek. The room erupted. Lila choked on her drink, her hand trembling. "Daniel, what is this?" she snapped, her own mask cracking. But the damage was already done. Guests whispered, their eyes darting between me, Daniel, and Lila. The admiration they'd showered on him minutes ago curdled into disgust. And me? I just stood there, calm and collected, watching the empire he built crumble in seconds. Finally, Daniel turned to me, desperation in his eyes. "Clara, I can explain." I tilted my head, my voice smooth but sharp enough to cut glass. "Explain to them, Daniel, not to me. I already know the truth." He reached for me, but I stepped back. The murmurs grew louder. Some of his colleagues were already pulling out their phones, recording. Friends who once praised him now stared in open judgment. Lila, shaking, stormed forward. "This wasn't supposed to happen. You said—" Her words hung in the air like a noose. The final slide appeared on screen. One last text from Daniel to Lila. "Can't wait for Clara to be out of the picture. You're the only one I want." The room went dead silent. I let the words hang there before speaking. "Well," I said, my voice steady, "I guess your wish came true. Because after tonight, I'm out of the picture. Completely." Gasps followed. Some people clapped. Others just shook their heads in disbelief. Daniel looked like a man unraveling, his perfect mask shattered beyond repair. And me? For the first time in months, I felt free. But as I stood there, basking in the chaos, a thought whispered at the back of my mind. Yes, I had exposed him. Yes, I had destroyed his image. But revenge has a way of spiraling. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The rooftop bar had always been Daniel's kingdom, a place where his charm reigned, where every laugh, every toast, every clink of a glass elevated his ego. But tonight, that kingdom was burning, and I was the one who struck the match. The screen behind me froze on the last image. Daniel's shirtless body in Leela's bed, his arm draped lazily around her waist as if they were lovers in some cheap romance novel. The silence afterward was suffocating, heavier than the city skyline pressing down on us. Then, like a spark igniting dry wood, whispers erupted. Is that Daniel? With her? Oh my God. At his own party? The sound grew. Gasps, muttered curses, and finally, open accusations. People Daniel had wooed for years, colleagues who once praised him, were now glaring at him as if he were a disease that had infected their champagne. Daniel stumbled forward, his face pale, his carefully practiced confidence unraveling. This is fake. She's bitter. She's trying to destroy me. His voice cracked, betraying the fear he tried to hide. But the crowd wasn't buying it. Phones were already raised, recording every second of his downfall. Daniel, his boss's voice cut through, sharp as glass. The older man's lips pressed into a thin, angry line. I vouched for you. I trusted you with clients, with investors. And this is how you repay that trust? Daniel's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. This has nothing to do with my work, sir, I swear. My personal life. Your personal life just became everyone's business, his boss snapped. And let me be very clear. A man who lies in one area of his life cannot be trusted in another. You're suspended, effective immediately. The words hit harder than any punch. Daniel staggered back as if the ground itself had betrayed him. Beside him, Leela looked like she'd been slapped. Her flawless makeup couldn't mask the terror flooding her eyes. She turned on him, her whisper sharp enough for the nearest guests to hear. You said no one would ever find out. You promised me. Daniel spun on her, fury replacing his panic. And you couldn't even keep your damn Instagram locked. Do you have any idea what you've done? Lila's lips trembled. What I've done? You're the one who... But the roar of the crowd drowned her out. Some guests laughed in disbelief, others shook their heads with disgust. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a public spectacle, and the stage lights were merciless. I should have felt nervous, maybe even guilty. Instead, I felt calm, powerful even. For months, they'd made me feel small, like I wasn't enough. Tonight, they were the ones stripped bare. I stepped forward, my voice steady, though my heart raced. I think everyone here deserves to know the truth, I said, projecting my words across the rooftop. Daniel isn't the man you all thought he was. He's a liar, a cheater, and the mask he's worn for years just cracked in front of you all. Gasps followed, but I didn't stop. And Lila, she was supposed to be my friend. Instead, she played me like a fool. Both of them thought I'd never find out, that I'd stay quiet. But secrets have a way of surfacing, don't they? I turned to leave, but suddenly Daniel lunged forward, grabbing my wrist so hard it stung. His eyes were wild, desperate. Clara, wait, please, don't do this. Don't walk away from everything we built together. I yanked my hand free, glaring at him. We didn't build anything, Daniel. I built it, and you hollowed it out with your lies. The crowd parted for me as I walked out, but behind me, chaos exploded. Daniel shouted, his voice breaking. Lila screamed back, her words venomous, each blaming the other louder than before. Don't you dare pin this on me. You ruined me, Lila, do you hear me? You were ruined long before I came along. Glasses shattered. Someone laughed bitterly. Someone else muttered, pathetic. By the time the elevator doors closed in front of me, I could still hear Daniel's furious, broken shouts echoing down the hall. The fallout didn't just last a night. It became a storm that consumed Daniel's life. Within days, videos of the party went viral. The hashtags trended. Hashtag party from hell, cheater exposed, hashtag justice for Clara. People who had never met me cheered me on, while Daniel became the internet's latest villain. His company severed ties completely. He lost not only his job, but also the big promotion he'd been bragging about for months. His sponsors canceled contracts. His so-called friends stopped answering his calls. And Lila, she vanished, deleted every social media account, disappeared from the city like a shadow at dawn. Whispers floated that she'd moved abroad, unable to face the shame. Daniel, stripped of the spotlight he adored, was left begging for scraps of work. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he was living in a tiny, dingy apartment, far from the glittering skyline he once ruled over. As for me, I started over. It wasn't simple. Heartbreak never is. But there was peace in knowing the truth was out, that I wasn't the fool they thought I was. Every day, I stitched myself back together, one thread of strength, one moment of clarity at a time. One evening, I sat in my new apartment with a glass of wine, scrolling through the viral video again. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Clara is a queen. That was legendary. I want her courage. For the first time, I smiled without bitterness. My pain had turned into a weapon, and with it, I had carved my own freedom. And yet, sometimes, late at night, I ask myself, was it revenge that set me free? Or was it finally letting go? I may never know, but what I do know is this. Daniel wanted me erased, discarded like yesterday's news. Instead, it was his world that crumbled, not mine. And as I stood by the window, the city lights twinkling like a million tiny truths, I whispered the words I'd waited so long to say. I'm free.